Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here again with another installment of my complete analysis of all 389 Bach chorales. Today we're going to be looking at Herr, habe, missgehandelt, which translates to Lord, to thee I make confession. All in all, pretty straightforward chorale. We pretty much stay in the realm of A minor and C major the entire time. I was tempted to do more analysis on the passing chords in this chorale. However, I wanted to stay consistent with my other chorales and really only highlight the passing chords that, and when I say the passing chords, I mean the chords that occur on and beats, so in between numbered beats. Because the chords are so short, I really only analyze them if they make sense of a progression. Like if I see two chords that go from one to another, and it's hard to make sense of why one would go to the next, it's usually because a passing chord is introduced most of the time. But let's get ahead with the analysis. We are in the key of A minor. We start with A minor, end on A major, so there's a Picardy third in play here. And the first cadence we have is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of A minor. So we start on a one chord. We get three passing tones in the alto, the tenor, and the bass. And then the chord just gets inverted. So it's just in root position at this point, with passing tones in the outer voices, D, A, C, and F sharp. So there's kind of like a passing four going on here, but that doesn't really need to be harmonically analyzed. Just the fact that we're aware of it is what matters. Then we have E, E, B, and G sharp. That's E major in root position, so just a 5 chord. Then we have F sharp, A, D, and A. I think there's an argument to be made here that this is a D major chord in first inversion. So that's a 4/6 chord. Remember, we see D major chords in minor keys when we make use of the melodic minor scale. G sharp, B, E, and B. That is an E major triad first inversion, so 5/6. It looks like non-chord tones here, but those are in fact chord tones. These two, however, are not. I guess that D is kind of like a neighboring seventh, but happens very, very fast. And 5/6 usually goes to 1 in root position. And we kind of get, right here, like a passing 2 chord, like a 2/7 in first inversion, right? Because we have B minor 7 flat 5. And actually also we could say here that the chord kind of reinverts itself back into root position. Then we have a root position E major triad again with a suspension going on, because this A over E is a 4th, and then the G sharp gets introduced on 3 and, which turns it into its regular old 5 chord. And then we cadence on 1 minor. On the next beat we get 1 again. No need to reanalyze it. But on beat 2 we have A, D, F sharp, and B. Or F natural rather. So we could look at that as 2, but I think it makes more sense to look at it as 7/7, and this A is actually a non-chord tone. So with that G sharp, that turns it into a G sharp fully diminished 7th chord, which makes more sense to go to 1. But really what's happening here is you could also have a kind of like a 2/4/2 going on, kind of like that. But I think it's 7/7. It ultimately depends on how you analyze it though. Yeah, and then that goes to 1. Then we have F, A, C, and A. That is an F major triad. That's a passing chord. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark that as a non-chord tone, because it goes to D, F, A, and B. Here we have a 2 chord that is half diminished and in first inversion, so a 2/6/5. And then we kind of get, this is where I'm going to analyze, even though that these notes are non-chord tones, we have an anticipation here, a neighbor tone, and kind of like an appoggiatura. I always forget between escape tone and appoggiatura, but the non-chord tone that is stepped into and leapt out of. we kind of get a passing 5 here. And this is where I will mark it because 2 wants to go to 5 before it wants to go to 1. So that's why I would mark it, because that's why the chord has significance, because it makes sense of the progression. Then we have G, C, E, and C. I don't think that 3 chord is really doing much, so I really think that this is mostly just counterpoint happening here. This is an A also, so really what's happening here is just A minor stuff. This is just a 1. In anticipation actually for a half cadence, because we're cadencing on E major, because here we have F, A, C, and B, or sorry, F, A, and B. It's kind of like a 2 chord, and it's 7. So we know it's half diminished, but there's no B in the, or no, there is a D in the chord, that's my bad. F. Oh, this isn't even a 2 chord at all. We have F, A, and D. That's actually a 4 chord in first inversion. 4, 6 to 5. That's interesting. We'll mark all the non-chord tones. Yeah, this is actually a Phrygian half cadence. There we go. Yeah, my analysis had a 2 chord written down there. That's because I was confusing my clefs. That's why I like to analyze a little bit before the video too, because I can already have the piece in my head. But what I could also do is I can go back and confirm my second draft with my first draft, and my second draft is always better. Alright. Now if we look ahead, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of C major. So we can call this A minor chord 1 for now, but we could also say that we've modulated to the key of C major, as we see G natural and no accidentals. So I think we're in the key of C major here. So even though the modulation may happen later, I think it's okay for the sake of analysis to think in these terms. Here on this beat we have G, D, A, and F. I think this G is an accented non-chord tone. This is actually a D minor triad in first inversion, or a 2-6. Because remember, we're in C now, so it's not 4. That's what it would be if it were in A minor, but we're in C, so it's 2-6, and that's where 6 wants to go. 6 wants to go to 2, so that's a good sign. And then we have E, D, G, and G. Again, I think we have a suspension here. This is a 7-6 suspension. 2-6 going to 1-6. It's okay. Not the first place I would expect the chord to go to, but that's okay. F, A, and C. That is a root position F major triad, which is a 4 chord. Passing tones in the alto and the bass. Then we have D, C, A, and F. That's a root position D minor 7 chord, so 2-7. Then we have a passing tone, or a neighbor tone rather, in the tenor, and just some counterpoint going on in the alto. That's a chord tone, so we don't need to analyze it or mark it. E, C, G, and E. Another C major triad in first inversion with the passing tone in the bass. And then we have G, C, G, and D. The C is a 4-3 suspension over the bass. So this is just a 5 chord, just G major. Passing 7th, very brief. In anticipation for a perfect authentic cadence on C. So looking ahead, we have a perfect authentic cadence back in the key of A minor. So we're looking for a modulation point. I don't think we've modulated quite yet, because we have G natural still. And you know, you will see G naturals in the key of A minor, but the melody still doesn't really feel like it's modulated yet. It doesn't really feel like it's modulated until here, because here's where we start to see E going down to A, and that's where we also see G sharps and stuff. So that's where I think the indication where the modulation's occurring. I'm going to say it's somewhere around beat 3. So here we'll just call this G, B, G, and D a 5 chord, because that's what it is. Passing tones, let's see, F, D, A, and D. It's like a kind of like a passing 4/6 chord, but then again, it doesn't really change the chord progression or justify much. E, G, B, and D. That's E minor 7 in root position, so we'll just go ahead and call that a 3/7 chord because we're not in the key of A minor yet. That was G sharp. If this was G sharp, we would definitely be in the key of A minor. That would be our pivot chord. Some passing tones in the lower voices. And then we kind of have an ornamented suspension here, which is kind of interesting, right? Because we have C, E, B, and E. You might be tempted to call this a 1/7 chord, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think these are both ornamenting a suspension. I really think that what's happening here is we're getting 3 going to 6 in first inversion as well, because it's A minor over C. But really what we're hearing here is A minor recontextualized in the key of A minor rather than A minor in the key of C major. So that's our pivot chord, 3 going to 6, right? That's 5 going to 3 is okay because 3 and 1 are substitutes for one another in the middle of the progression. 3 wants to go to 6 via the falling fifths. That's a pretty straightforward progression. And that would be a good point once we see G sharp to start thinking in terms of A minor. We then get the same chord again on the next beat, passing tones going on here. Here we have B, D, G, and A, so I think these are just passing tones or non-chord tones. Yeah, A, C, F, and D. A, C, F, and D. No, that was right. That is a D minor 7 chord over A, so that is 4/3, A, C, F, and D. This is the first time we've seen a 4/4/3 chord, I believe, in all of our analysis. Really interesting. Yeah, I can't, the chord I had to analyze, I had to do a double take because I didn't expect the chord to be there. But you know, with 7th chords, because there are 4 chords, it's a tetrachord, right? Inversions aren't as finicky as they are with triads where there's, voice doubling. But Bach doesn't care about voice doubling, right? That's a clear indicator is that I've kind of stopped talking about voice doubling because it's just, he doubles the voices to accommodate the voice leading. That's what matters. It's not that when you're voicing a triad, you want to try and voice one voice over the others. You voice it to fit the texture, and Bach does exactly that. Some passing tones. We have G sharp, B, E, and D, so it's kind of like a passing 5/7, so we'll call that 5/6/5 actually, because it's over the G sharp. Then we have A, E, and C. And the reason why I bother analyzing this passing 5 chord is because it makes sense of the 4 chord. 4/5/1 is a normal progression. It's like a progression that we would expect. 4 is a predominant. It goes to a dominant, either 7 or 5, and then it goes to 1. That's how we expect it to function. Then we have some, again, kind of like a 2 chord going on, so this time over D, so a 2/6/5 chord kind of in passing, which doesn't really do much. I mean, it is anticipating for the cadence. Why not? I'll just analyze it. It's a 2/6/5. And then it goes just to a regular 5 chord in E major triad, again with the suspension and the tenor. Then it resolves with passing 7th. Then it cadences on a major 1, Picardy 3rd. All in all, pretty straightforward chorale to analyze. Something that I've been meditating on is, when is it worthwhile to analyze passing chords? And I think on paper, it's like if you're working on something like this for an analysis, for a class, or as an assignment, ask yourself, or it's probably even better for you to be just transparent with the instructor. Just say, hey, how thorough of a harmonic analysis do you want? Do you want me to try and analyze and pick apart every single analyzable tertian triad or seventh chord, or do you only want me to analyze the chords on the numbered beats and only pick out chords that are meaningful? Personally, the passing chords that I analyze are the ones that make, like I said, make sense of the progression. And if that doesn't make if it doesn't make as much sense to you, there shouldn't really be any reason for you to analyze them. Like I said, when you point out 5 chords, like 2, 5, 1, that 5 chord is a very dissonant sound. It's a very pungent sound, and I think it can inform your performance practice. In comparison to if you have a 3 chord and there's like a passing 4, it may not have the same amount of heft. But that being said, overall straightforward analysis, not super difficult, no secondary dominance. I might throw this one in my back pocket. It's not as strong of an example as the other ones that I've looked at, or some of the other ones that I've looked at, but all in all, after a long day, an easy analysis, or not even necessarily an easy analysis, but a short analysis is definitely appreciated. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's analysis as well, and thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Take care.